We're often told that ranchers and wolf advocates are natural enemies. But what if that narrative is actually wrong? Hi, I'm Sandy Bobal-Zuniga, the founder of Colorado Springs Town Tidings. Be in the know, on the go for all things Colorado Springs, delivered right to your inbox. Today, we're spotlighting ColoradoWild. They're a nonprofit that's reached over 1,000 Coloradans through workshops and events promoting human wildlife coexistence. Here to share their science based approach to protecting our state's wildlife is ecologist Rebecca, although her friends call her Becca Sue, and by the time we're done, you're going to be her friend too. So, Becca Sue Burkhalter. Becca Sue, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I am too. It's great to have you here. So, before we get going, I'm curious. What first sparked your passion for wolves? What drew you to these animals in particular?
That is an excellent question that I don't get asked very often, so thank you so much. I
Awesome.
have loved dogs since I was before I could speak, and I think I've seen Balto, the Disney movie, about 1,000 times. I'm not exaggerating. But really what it was, and you've probably never heard of this, but there's kind of a famous comic book series from the 80s called Elf Quest. You
Okay.
ever heard of ElfQuest? Anybody out there that knows who ElfQuest is, what elf they're saying, oh my gosh, ElfQuest. But basically, it's a comic book series about elves that ride wolves. And I
Oh,
thought it was obviously fiction, obviously, but I thought it was so cool. And it inspired me. That's where it began. But it inspired me to continue lifelong to work for wolves.
wow. So, from a comic book back in the 80s, you basically took your life to that direction. Not many people have a dream or a vision at that time and go right through it. So,
Yeah.
congrats.
Thanks.
You're a rarity.
Yeah, it was easy to choose my college major, that's for sure.
There you go. So, kind of bring us along from that time of the comic book, and then you went to college, and then are you a Colorado native? And give us some background.
Yeah, good question. So I was born in Dallas,
Okay.
and so I went to college at the University of North Texas, where I earned my ecology degree. And there are no wolves in Texas. There have not been wolves for a very long time. So I actually did my studies on birds. So
Okay.
I banded birds in North Texas and at the very, very southern tip of Chile, which was a really incredible experience.
Wow.
But after I graduated, and during that process, I realized that I'm actually fairly afraid of birds. Funny because now I work with, apex predators, but yeah, I quickly realized that bird banding was not for me. And we didn't move to Colorado for wolves. We just moved because I was dying of concrete sickness in
Oh,
DFW. Uh-huh, you know what that means. So I moved
yes.
to Colorado and found a job working with wolves and never looked back.
Where did you find that job? Is it Colorado Springs or somewhere else?
Yeah, it's in Colorado Springs at a
Oh,
zoo. Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
What zoo was it back then?
So I've worked at several in Colorado. I've worked at most of the zoos in Colorado Springs, actually.
Oh, cool. Okay, so what brought you to Colorado Wild?
Yeah, so I was finding my way in the wolf world, which can be really stressful. There's a lot of extremely passionate people, and those passions often get controversial. And so I was moving kind of from place to place to kind of find my tribe of people.
Right.
And I was really frustrated at the time after not finding my place, and I called everybody that I could find. I literally Colorado Springs wolves, and I just went down the list. I started calling people, and this woman named Delia Malone answered the phone, and I was almost in tears, honestly. And I said, I know what I want to do with my life. I can't find people who perfectly align with who I am and what my goals are and what my ideals are. I'm really hoping that you share some ideals with me. And it turned out that Delia Malone did share my ideals. And one of the major reasons that I chose Colorado Wild over the other opportunities that I found was that the first conversation that I had with Delia was positive. It was about bringing people together. And I remember saying something like, I really don't like how divided the wolf issue makes people. I
Right.
don't like how wolf advocates go after ranchers. I don't like how ranchers go after wolf advocates. And she said, well, basically, she told me that I should get on board with her because that's exactly what Colorado Wild is doing, is building that bridge between livestock producers and wolf advocates. And after she said that, I was on board and I've been working with them for several years now. Couldn't be happier. I finally found my tribe.
Wow, that is great. And you're hooked. And that's it. So now tell me what your role is with Colorado Wild.
So I use my ecological experience and my ecology degree to work as a science educator for them. So I don't do any animal handling for Colorado Wild. I only go, especially to the Front Range, to
Mhm.
teach people the truth about wolves, but I also go out onto the Western Slope quite often as well.
Okay. And I think you are pretty much the point of contact if somebody contacts the Colorado Wild. Are you the one answering, or are you just part mainly for the events?
So I'm mainly for the events. I'm mainly the event manager for Colorado Wild, but to be honest with you, we're only a group of maybe 5 or 6 people.
Okay.
So there's no phone number, you know. So yeah, I'm the events person. But I would say that Delia, the founder of Colorado Wild, is the main point of contact.
Okay. Great. So you have so much experience, and this conversation is really to allow the real story to come out, the real education to come out. I wanted to make sure I gave you a platform so that does come out. Now, Colorado recently brought wolves back to the state, as we all know. How's that process actually going beyond what we see in the headlines?
Yeah. So reintroducing wild animals is extremely difficult, and it's expected that some of those animals won't make it, partially because transport is difficult, but also because wild animals live very difficult lives and they often die even without transport. However, we have had a fairly high mortality rate in Colorado for those wolves, mainly because of poaching, because people won't stop shooting them. And because our own government, Colorado and Wyoming, have also shot several of them.
Huh. So tell me more about the reintroduction. What is your stance? And I mean, obviously, we know what your stance is, but why is that so important? Kind of educate us. Let's back up a little bit. Educate us on that part, bringing them in, what they were hoping to accomplish. Why is it important? And then we can go on those opposed, and pretty much on your side, give us the real story of what's happening. Again, I don't like the sensationalization of the headlines and what's in the news. I want really the real truth about what's happening, and let's just discuss.
Yeah, that is a huge topic, and I don't think I'll be able to answer that concisely. But I can tell you that the information I'm about to share is not my opinion. This is a presentation of the science.
Right,
So that's where I'm coming from. I'm a biologist, ecologist, not a politician. And I'm prepared to answer political questions, but that's not where I'm going to take this
right,
conversation because I'm not as versed in that. So, first of all, Colorado Wild was not a nonprofit at the time of the vote. So, in case listeners didn't know, the reintroduction of the gray wolf was on the ballot. It was Proposition 114. Colorado voters voted yes to reintroduce the gray wolf into Colorado, and we had nothing to do with that ballot measure. So,
Okay.
But I was involved in that process, and so were a lot of the other people that I work with. One of the major criticisms of the vote, the Proposition 114, is this term ballot box biology. Have you ever heard that term?
I have not.
So the idea of ballot box biology, it means that an uneducated public is voting ignorantly on wildlife or scientific issues.
Okay.
So opponents say, hey, the public doesn't know anything about ecology. Why did they vote on it? They voted wrong. People say this. They say wolves are not native. They say wolves do not belong here. They say there's all kinds of things, right? But actually, it was me, hi, the scientist, not just some random member of the public, and scientists that I work with that pushed for the ballot measure.
Okay.
What you just described is the idea of ballot box biology,
Okay.
that an uninformed, or a nastier word for uninformed is ignorant, public doesn't know about an issue, and so they shouldn't vote on that issue. Okay.
Oh,
So let
gotcha.
me tell you why the wolf reintroduction is not an example of ballot box biology.
Okay.
Because the public was not uninformed, and because it was the scientists who came up with the ballot measure. So, in the instance of ballot box biology, I can't even think of an example of an example right now, but the wolf reintroduction is not ballot box biology because the science really says that Colorado needs wolves ecologically.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So, why did it get on the ballot in the first place? And it's a very unusual thing to have the public vote on a wildlife issue like this. So, what happened? What happened was that wildlife advocates and scientists have been pushing for wolves to be back into Colorado, to be restored to Colorado for decades. Every legislative option was blocked outright. So the scientists got together and said, all right, we're going to figure out how to get this on the ballot then. And they did. So, but again, Colorado Wild was not involved in getting the reintroduction onto the ballot. We were only formed about 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
So the next segue into that is, why does Colorado need wolves in the first place? Right?
Right.
That's what you're really getting at. And Colorado needs wolves for a magnitude of reasons. First of all, we are rapidly losing biodiversity here. That means that we are losing our wildlife and our wildlands. Wolves are very well known to revitalize ecosystems and increase biodiversity. Also in Colorado, we have a pretty extreme overpopulation of ungulates, that's hooved animals like deer, moose, and bison, and is the natural prey of wolves. Wolves are very well known to moderate ungulate populations and change their behavior in a way that helps the landscape thrive. Instead of, when we do not have wolves, we have far too many ungulates. They eat up so many plants that the ecosystem crashes. And that is what we're seeing here in Colorado. And I could go on and on and on about all the different reasons that we need wolves here in Colorado. But the basics of it is that our ecosystems are falling apart rapidly. Wolves are very necessary to our ecosystems to keep them functioning. So we need them here. Wolves are native to Colorado.
Okay. So I would assume that they would have been back in the day. I don't know what happened that they weren't here.
Where'd all the wolves go?
Yeah.
Yeah, we killed them all. Europeans came over and rapidly began debilitating the Native American population, and that was largely in part due to the debilitation of their wildlife, the bison and the wolves. Those exterminations continued for hundreds of years until we started to see American bounty systems in the 1800s. So that means that the American government was paying people to exterminate wolves. And quite frankly, that war on wolves hasn't stopped. We are still exterminating wolves. especially in the Northern Mountain Rockies. Although the situation is different here in Colorado, they have better protections here in Colorado than they do north of us.
Okay.
But there's a larger question here that I want to touch on, and that is why do wolves, why does the gray wolf as a species need Colorado? So
Well,
it's not only that Colorado needed wolves for our ecosystems, it's also that the mega population of the gray wolf needs Colorado. So we have those northern populations in, Canada, Idaho, Montana, those places. And then we have this huge gap of no wolves. And then towards the bottom of the United States, on the border of Arizona and New Mexico, we have the Mexican gray wolves. That's a subspecies of the gray wolf. So when Mexican grays from the south move north, they get killed. They get relocated back down south. And that's by our government, by hunters or poachers. When
okay.
animals move south from those northern populations, they're shot or relocated back up north. Now, a lot of people tell me, but we already had wolves in Colorado. Why did you need to reintroduce? And there's some truth to that. We did have several animals wander down in 70 years without wolves. We had several animals wander down from those northern populations. But it is incredibly rare that those wolves would make it from the northern populations to here because they have to go through what wolf advocates call the Wyoming gauntlet. And that is hundreds of miles of wolf hating territory.
Uh,
So, in order to have connectivity, in order to save the American gray wolf from genetic depression or inbreeding, we need to have connection between the northern population and the southern population. Colorado is situated in between those two, and it's also critical and ideal habitat for the gray wolf.
okay. So then the ballot measure came on and it was approved to introduce them. Where are they getting the wolves from, or where were they getting them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, originally, oh gosh, I hope I don't get this wrong, but I believe that the first round was from the Northern Mountain Rockies,
I think so
and then
too.
the second round was from Canada.
Okay. And so there's been 2 rounds so far.
Correct.
How many do you happen to have a rough estimate of how many they introduced just in Colorado?
Yeah, so CPW and U.S. Fish and Wildlife has reintroduced roughly, gosh, it's either 30 or 35
Okay.
wolves. And we have poached, hunted, ran over something, these are real rough numbers, but something like 10 of them. And then other accidents, I remember, for example, one was attacked by a mountain lion. So we've lost something like 13.
Okay. Yeah, there
But
are obviously predators of wolves as well.
that,
So there's a balance on both sides. They are predators and they have predators.
they do not. They are apex
Oh,
predators. So they're
okay.
like, if you can imagine the apex, right? There's nothing above. So yeah, the only
Right.
thing that really, I mean, sometimes there are wildlife conflicts like the mountain lion, but the
Right.
number one predator, big quotations, to wolves is humans. And the
Right.
reason I use quotations is because nobody's eating wolves.
Right. Yeah. So that it's not for a food source. And that's what other animals are hunted for,
Yeah.
or game. So, and there's not, obviously, they're introducing them. There'll never be a legal license to hunt a wolf unless they just procreate so much that there's an overabundance, which
I
is a
would
thing.
really like to believe that. However, in Wyoming, for example,
Uh-huh.
70% of Wyoming is what's called a predator zone. That means
Uh-huh.
anyone can go out and kill as many wolves as they want to with no tag limit and no tag required.
Really?
So, yes, really. So I am very, I don't know how to say this, but we really need to not hunt wolves in Colorado because of what our neighbors to the north are doing.
Right. Well, I'm not a hunter, so I don't know that much about it. However, I do let my audience know when there's licenses available and things like that. So I know that we are very regulated here in our state on what can be hunted and how many and what from the license they're allowed to. It's not unlimited.
Correct. Well, there are some unlimited animals that you can kill year-round indiscriminately, but I don't want to say what animals they are because I don't want to be wrong.
Right, right. Well, I know the big ones are usually in the fall, and that's
Mhm.
usually when the licenses start happening. And a lot of people will use them for meat and food source.
Sure, sure. But
So,
nobody's eating coyotes. Nobody's eating wolves.
yeah,
Nobody's eating bobcats. That's trophy hunting.
that's true.
And
Yeah.
by the way, really quick, I come from a hunting family and I
Okay.
have no problem with hunting. Another reason why I love Colorado Wild because we're much more moderate than some of the other wolf advocacy groups. Um, but we ate what we hunt.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So I saw on the news, I think last night or the night before, that there was another wolf that was killed, but they didn't say, or died, and
yeah.
they didn't say what the cause was. And
Mhm.
so they didn't say it was shot, didn't say it was, they just said it had died. Maybe they're looking into it. It could be illness, who knows? But
Yeah.
how does your team at Colorado Wild process that kind of setback when you know that there were only so many, 30 or so actually brought in?
Yeah. When you say process, do you mean what action do we take against that, or how do I sleep at night?
When you hear the news, what happens with, with you guys? Is it pretty devastating because you know there's only so many that came in, or is it circle of life kind of
hmm
move on?
If we had not had our government kill them and have people poach them, maybe I would have a different perspective.
Hmm.
But at this point, every animal that we lose is absolutely critical, and it is devastating every time, emotionally devastating every time we lose a wolf,
Right.
because it means that we have failed them. When we fail, animals die, and that is really heavy. But what do we do about it except for cry?
I know.
We
Not much you
contact
can do about it.
There is a lot we can do about it. And I mean, we can't bring that animal back to life,
Right.
but we contact the CPW Commission. So there's 11 voting members of the CPW Commission, and they make all of the wolf decisions in Colorado. So we have 11 people that we contact all the time, and then there's two more commissioners that are not voting members, but we still contact them as well. We also contact our representatives. And our major message right now is if we are not going to reintroduce more wolves this year, which it looks like CPW is not going to be sourcing wolves from Canada for this year, we need to protect the wolves that we have. And every time we lose one, that need gets so much stronger. Because, yes, I love furry animals. Okay, I love wolves. I hope that's obvious. But that's not why I do this. I do this because people need our ecosystems to survive. And wolves keep ecosystems functioning. Humans need wolves.
Right. So with that, kind of tell us science-based, what would happen or what has been happening specifically without them?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. And we have a lot of data here in Colorado. Like I mentioned, we have an overpopulation of ungulates. What I didn't mention is that those ungulates in Colorado are riddled with something called chronic wasting disease. We need to talk about chronic wasting disease as well. We're losing biodiversity. The list goes on. But wolves are one of the best studied animals, and that's largely in part because of Yellowstone. So how much information do you have about the reintroduction of wolves into Yellowstone? Because that's where a lot of what I'm saying comes from.
Yeah, I have zero. You are my source.
Cool. So wolves were purposefully extirpated, that means exterminated from Yellowstone in the 20s, 1920s. It took until 95 and 96 to reintroduce. So in between that time period, we saw an incredible degradation of the ecosystem. We saw rivers disappear. We saw species one after another leave the park, which means a loss of biodiversity. We saw an overpopulation of ungulates riddled with chronic wasting disease. So, the example of Yellowstone is what we're seeing here in Colorado today. And that's how we know that we need wolves in Colorado because our ecosystem is fairly similar to the one in Yellowstone. And the Western Slope is actually just about the same size as the greater Yellowstone area. The greater Yellowstone area regularly and very easily supports 500 wolves. So scientists are looking to have several hundred wolves in Colorado in the future.
So how did that turn around in Yellowstone from 95 to today? So we
Yeah.
have that as something to possibly look forward to if we
Yeah.
do it right.
I feel like you're hitting the nails on the head here. So, seriously, there's a really, really great video called How Wolves Change Rivers. If you're out there listening, I highly encourage you to YouTube How Wolves Change Rivers. It made me cry my eyes out and totally changed the trajectory of my life to push me further into what I'm doing. But basically, what that video says is that without wolves, we have far too many herbivores or ungulates. Those herbivores eat so many plants around the banks of the river that the rivers lose erosion control and we literally lose those rivers. So we lose the beavers, we lose those aquatic ecosystems, on and on and on. And that's what we call a trophic cascade. So after we reintroduced wolves, who were at the top of the trophic level, those positive effects cascaded down the ecosystem. So, for example, with the rivers, when we reintroduced wolves into Yellowstone, they moved those elk herds around. I don't know if you know this, but elk are very lazy and they just want to stay in the river by the rivers and eat up all the tasty, soft vegetation. So
Really,
wolves,
the only
yeah.
thing I know about elk is they make those funny noises.
Oh, those are scary to hear if you, yeah. But so after those wolves move those elk away, then the plants can start to give erosion control to those rivers again. And we actually saw a return of the rivers in Yellowstone just several years after wolves were reintroduced. So that's one example of how influential and how important wolves are to ecosystems.
And I find that interesting. I'm trying not to speak out of ignorance.
No, that's
Um, I
okay.
I find that interesting because when you think of wolves, you just think of carnivores, and again, there's the movies and the controversy and the sensational headlines. You go to the negative, and I really like that you gave that whole scenario, not scenario, but what actually happened, because I would have never thought about vegetation
Yeah.
thinking about wolves. And I am a vegetarian, so I don't even eat meat and carnivore stuff. So having that, it's just an interesting perspective for me to know about and to realize obviously Colorado has a water issue, and our rivers and anything that will hold water is precious to us. So
Yeah.
if I'm talking out of turn, let me know. But if introducing wolves here in our dry climate, if we like this year, we've had hardly any snow at all. The snow impact, the waters, is going to be kind of devastating for the
Yeah.
till the next time. So if we have wolves in there, then that could help preserve some of our already existing waterways and to keep them at least containing what comes down as opposed to running off because there's no vegetation there to keep it in.
Yeah, definitely. And not only the vegetation, because wolves protect vegetation. That's a very important job that they do for us. But they also work synergistically with beavers. So when wolves were reintroduced into Yellowstone, around that same time, beavers and bears were also reintroduced. So it wasn't like
Oh,
wolves went out onto a barren landscape and magically They need every other member of the ecosystem to support them as
Right.
well, so that then they can support every other member of the ecosystem. But something that you said made me think of this. Beavers rely on wolves because wolves protect vegetation, wolves protect the rivers. When we do not have beavers, water quality and quantity goes way down.
Oh, I didn't know that. So the wolves aren't eating the beavers, though.
I think if they catch one, they'd probably eat it. Yeah,
Okay.
but their main source. Yeah, wolves are fairly opportunistic. They'll eat just about anything if they like it.
Yeah.
Except for people. I do just have to say, wolves do not hunt people. In fact, I'm going to pull a little game on you that I pull with my presentations because
Okay.
I have you captive. I want you to guess, and please be honest with me.
Oh
How many
boy, I'm not good
people,
at guessing.
come on, do it with me. How
I
many
will.
people do you believe have been killed by wolves in all of North America in the past 150 years?
Because I feel like you're setting me up, the
Yeah.
right answer, the right answer would be zero. However, um, and in my mind, I usually think that they're going after animals, like livestock, that kind of thing. Um, but I don't know if just like mountain lions don't necessarily attack people, but if you're in that hiking trail and they're
Yeah.
there and they have their young and stuff, you may wind up. So that has happened. So this is a trick question. I like so 150 years again. I feel like it's zero, but I'm gonna say 10.
That's a good guess. Most people get, because I do this all the time, right? Most people guess something like 100, 200, 300. The
Uh-huh.
answer in all of North America is actually two.
Okay.
So you're really close. In the lower 48, it's zero. But I just have to mention for those two attacks that happened, somebody was feeding wildlife.
Right.
So don't feed wildlife. But
Yeah.
what do you do if you see a wolf in the wild? What do you do? I always tell people, thank God and grab your binoculars, right? Because that is going to be so far away from you. However, what happens if you're walking along a trail and all of a sudden you see a wolf? You are actually close to a wolf. What do you do? I always tell people in every situation, wildlife interactions are different. If you're able to slowly move away, do that. But you need to start thinking at that point. Number one, could it be a coyote? Maybe I don't know the difference between a coyote and a wolf. If it's a coyote, you are in no danger unless maybe you have a small off-leash dog, something like that. The second option is that it might be a wolf dog,
Right.
someone's pet. So, wolf dogs are combinations of wolves and dogs. And interestingly, they are not hybrids. So, like a mule is a mix between a donkey and a horse. A mule cannot have children, right?
Oh,
That can have children, but a wolf dog or a coy dog actually can have offspring that can have offspring. Pretty
oh,
interesting. But anyway, what do you do if you think you might be in contact with a wolf dog? I would say read the dog's body language very carefully. Are they socialized? Do they look like a dog or do they look like a wolf? If they look like a wolf and they don't look friendly, unzip your jacket. Right? Clap your hands, get big and loud.
oh, really?
That's what you should do. Yes. The third option may be rabies. So rabies is
Wow.
exceedingly rare in wolves, okay? And every wolf that has been reintroduced has been vaccinated into Colorado, has been vaccinated. So the
Okay.
risk of rabies in a wolf is like extremely low. But if that animal looks sick, don't approach it. Don't
Right.
approach any wildlife, especially not if it's sick.
Right. Right. So if you encounter something that looks like a wolf and you try and get big and then walk away, if it's not sick, it most likely would turn.
Oh, yeah. Wolves
Okay.
are absolutely terrified, terrified of people. Now, I have spent many, many, and I'm not joking, I have spent many hours sitting in a wolf enclosure with a piece of bacon, waiting for that wolf to come eat the bacon so I can make friends with the wolf. Okay. Literal years it has taken me to earn a relationship with these animals. Okay. And
Huh.
I fully trust them. I mean, I let them lick me in the mouth. Okay. That's gross, but that's what I do. Okay. I touch their paws and all that. I'm not afraid of them. However, if I were to walk into that enclosure with like a weird hat on, they would run from me.
Right.
That's how afraid wolves are of people.
Okay. I got it. I actually grew up with Malamute. So
Oh,
and she was a sweetie.
oh,
It was she was in a shelter and they poisoned her family's food and she was young and she was one of the few, I think the only one that actually survived. And it was like, I don't know, a neighbor or somebody poisoned the food because they were howling. That's what they do. And so my dad came home with Koala was her name, and she was this big old Malamute, and I just loved her to death. She was one of my two friends, that and my cat growing up.
oh,
And she was so sweet, but she also had some brain damage from the poisoning. So I don't think she acted exactly like a wolf dog. But
was
I, what was that?
was she a wolf dog?
Well, she was a Malamute, so I don't know what the difference is, but I know Huskies and then Malamutes. But that's my only introduction or whatever to that. And I personally, I loved all animals, kiss them on the snoot and all that stuff when I was a kid. And one that I found just down our block, and I didn't know whose it was, and I was giving it lovin's, and it
Oh,
bit me. And from that point on, I'm scared of any dog that I don't know. And
yeah.
so, I back off. So I don't know what I would do in the wild. I mean, I don't like going taking walks because people, even though they're supposed to have their dogs on a leash,
Oh,
they don't, and I don't know them, so they could be friendly, which would be great, but if not, so I don't like walking in the trails because of that. So I don't know what I would do if an actual wolf or that kind of went in there. So I'm so glad you gave us all those different tips. We all know, like, if bears and stuff, be big, do this and that, and you still don't know what the animal is going to do because you don't know what's around. Again, if they have their young, their babies around, things are a little bit different. It's not your typical they'll run away, but you don't know that. So in general, that's that. So thank you for all those tips. How are the wolves doing as far as procreating in Colorado right now?
that's another really great question. We don't know exactly,
Okay.
but we do know that some of the wolves have mated and have puppies.
Okay.
So that's a really good thing, but there's only been, you know, a few opportunities for that to happen because wolves only breed once a year
Okay.
and only the alphas breed.
Okay.
So if you have a pack of five, only two of those are breeding. So we don't know exactly. We're very hopeful. But yeah.
But if there are, so is that just the males that will breed with any females, or is it
Hmm.
the alpha male and female?
Yeah. So let's just talk about pack structure.
Yeah.
At the top, you have the alphas, obviously, and lots of people think that the alpha is the biggest, strongest male that bullies his way up to the top. I'm not saying that's what you thought, but that's what a lot of people perceive. Nothing could be farther from the truth.
Really?
Actually, the alphas are the mom and dad. So you always have a female alpha and a male alpha.
Oh,
There's this
wow.
really famous YouTube video. If you look up wolf documentary on YouTube, I'm almost certain this is the one that comes up. And here's the story. So alpha male and female mate. They have puppies. Then the male dies. The alpha male dies. So then the female continues for like 9 more years, and they never call her the alpha female.
Uh,
They just call her the female. It's like, what? What is it like? You're so misogynistic that you're putting those ideas onto animals? Like, that is outrageous. So, the guy, David Meach, who originally came up with one of the biggest papers to tell people that the males were the alphas and this idea of dominance and all of that, he's actually spent the rest of his career trying to debunk that original paper that he published.
Oh my
So
goodness.
great guy. But yeah. So, and then below the alphas, you have the betas. Those do tend to be the larger wolves. Below that, you have the subordinates. So that's all the other brothers and sisters. And at the bottom, you actually have something, there's a role called the omega. Now, the omega is the one that eats last and may not eat at all. He's the one that kind of gets bullied, or they're the scapegoat. And that sounds really cruel, but there's a purpose for this. So, in the event that there is not enough food for the litter of puppies, the adults will chase out the omegas. So the puppies survive. We know we have enough food for the puppies. And then that omega is a lone wolf for a short period of time while they're searching for another pack. There's no such thing as a lone wolf, with very few exceptions, by the way. Wolves don't want to be alone, and they don't survive very well alone either. But then that omega gets kicked out, and he's all alone. But then he sees a really cute female, and then they mate, and he becomes an alpha. And that's how you get genetic diversity in between packs.
Oh my goodness. I love that. As you were saying it, I'm sitting there going, oh my goodness, that sounds like the story of my life. I've been in
Oh,
Omega,
oh no, I'm so sorry. You don't seem like an omega to me.
but maybe right now, maybe I'm an alpha. Who knows?
That's right.
But
That's
I
right.
love that story because it starts off.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many parallels to some people's lives, like mine,
That's cool.
that you didn't realize, and so thank
I
you.
love it. That's cool.
So thank you for
Hey,
that.
your koala, the
Koala.
Malamute, how long did she live? Yeah.
Oh, she
Did she
was
live to
like,
be old?
yeah, she was like 10 or 13. She
Oh, good.
wound up, I think it was when I went to college. She had to be put down arthritis and all kinds of stuff.
Well,
And I
that's
remember my dad having to lift her up, and we're talking 100 something pounds. I don't know, and he had to take her to the vet, and he doesn't usually cry back then, and he was just torn up. She was such a part of our life, and for my life in general, she was always there. The one thing I always tease is I was pretty young and I was pretty thin at the time. And so when she was there, I was like, great, I'm going to get on her back and I'm going to ride her. As soon as I got on her back, she sat down every time. I'm
that's
like,
funny.
fine, I'll just hug you. And then we used to go ahead and do a song. I would kind of sing, and we'd all go, oh, together and stuff. It was just
Oh,
that was my best friend.
that's so sweet.
As an omega, she obviously was maybe a beta. I don't know, but she did not kick me out. Yeah. So that I think that was um, a great how a description of how the wolf packs are, because I don't think a lot of people know that there's preconceived notions. And again, then you have the cartoons and you have the movies, and that's all you have. So thank you for sharing that. That was very eye-opening. And so let's talk a little bit with the reintroduction. Let's talk a little bit about the ranchers. And we often hear that all ranchers oppose wolf reintroduction. They don't want him on their land, obviously. From your workshops with both sides, is that really the whole story?
No, of course not. There are plenty of ranchers who don't want to kill wolves, and there are even, I'm not going to say plenty, but there are ranchers out there that support wolves and support wolves in Colorado. I don't blame the livestock producer who has been fed misinformation their entire life to be against wolves. I understand. However, when you look at the facts and the science, based on decades of data that we have, it becomes obvious that wolves are not the livestock producer's enemy. And in fact, when livestock producers coexist, with wolves as opposed to killing them. It's very possible, first of all, and it can even be profitable. And I'm saying that based on our workshops, based on the Wood River Wolf Project in Idaho with Suzanne Ashes Stone. There is the Alder Springs Ranch in Idaho as well with the Elzingas. They're absolutely fantastic people. We have the Blackfoot Challenge in Montana. So those are some name drops of some people who are using coexistence regularly, proactively, and have been doing so for, in some cases, decades. So that's how we know that coexistence is possible and is probably profitable.
So, what does that look like to coexist a rancher and the wolves?
Yeah. So coexisting with wolves is the most effective way to protect your livestock from wolves.
What do you
And
mean
if
by
that's,
that?
yeah, what is that about? Okay, so what's happening there? So let's say we have a pack of five, mom, dad, and three adult offspring. Somebody comes out and shoots mom, which unfortunately is a fairly common occurrence. There's a couple of things that can happen here. First of all, if you can imagine being with your family out in the wild and somebody comes and kills mom, that would be extremely emotionally devastating. Wolves definitely mourn their dead. But moreover, they lose the knowledge that that matriarch had. They lose the knowledge of where those hunting grounds are, right? You debilitate that family. I don't know if you've ever tried to like bite through an elk's throat before, but it's
As a
really
vegetarian, I have not.
it's really hard. And wolves need every member of their family to take down their very dangerous, very large natural prey like deer, moose, bison, and elk. Now, they know how dangerous their prey is to them because they see their family members get killed or maimed pretty often by these dangerous animals. But because they know how dangerous their prey is, wolves go after the sick, the weak, and the slow. What's left over is the strongest breeding stock. Now, again, I come from a hunting family, very proud to come from a hunting family, but we always went for the biggest, strongest deer,
Right.
the one that we thought was going to fill up our deep freeze, right?
Right.
But wolves don't have deep freezes,
Right.
obviously. So wolves are very well known to increase ungulate herd health. So not only does Colorado need wolves, not only can ranchers benefit from having wolves on their property, actually ungulates like deer, moose, and elk also benefit from having wolves.
Wow. Again, I love the perspective. It's a perspective because you're bringing us the science and a different way of thinking it. It's not just your opinion. So I use perspective loosely that way.
Oh, yeah.
And with that, so if ranchers, because wolves, will they go after cattle?
So I needed to round out that last sentence. I'm forgot. I say these things so often, you know. So when we debilitate their natural ability to go after their natural prey, wolves get desperate. So not only does that pack get desperate, they may also disband after they lose mom. So now you have four desperate animals on the landscape that don't know where the hunting grounds are, don't have their mom to support them. Desperate animals, alone animals, are those that go after livestock. And that's actually what we've seen here in Colorado. So we have had some livestock depredations. Depredation is the word that people use to describe when a wild animal takes out a livestock animal. However, and I'm going to start this sentence over. Wolf depredations for individual livestock producers can be devastating.
Right.
However, if you use proactive, usually pretty cheap, effective coexistence measures, which we'll talk about, you're not going to have those issues. These coexistence methods, like lights or just yelling at the wolves when they're on your property, keeping them away from your livestock, is so effective that we know from our northern neighbors that we can actually eliminate depredation. So here in Colorado, what happened was a pack took out a livestock animal after being reintroduced, and then that producer refused to cover his carcass pit. We have evidence that he could have baited wolves to his property. And then lo and behold, and then they killed members of that pack. So the scientists during that whole thing were saying, this isn't helping you. You're only going to get more livestock animals taken by not coexisting. What happened? More livestock animals were taken until that pack had to be relocated. And several of those animals were killed by CPW because of the rancher's decisions. If that rancher would have said, I'll be proactive, I will accept help from CPW, he wouldn't have had any more animals taken. The problem is that historically, we have incentivized allowing producers to let their animals get taken through no coexistence requirements, through self-reported numbers, and through uh, a pretty extreme compensation program here in Colorado, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but it is a way to incentivize killing wolves.
Okay. So what kind of help would they have gotten? So you said the wolves were first reintroduced and it killed one of their wildlife or their
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention, by the way, that gosh, I can't believe I forgot to mention this. Why did they go after livestock in the first place?
right. That's what I
We
was going to say.
Thank you. So we had two animals, a mom and a dad. Mom gets pregnant. Mom has to stay in the den with the puppies for 6 to 8 weeks. Dad has to feed everybody in that den, but he can only go about 2 to 5 miles from the den site. Well, the only available prey were livestock because when livestock moves in, natural prey leaves. And so that wolf had no other option. Then somebody shot him in the leg so he could no longer travel. He was an incredibly desperate wolf who made decisions to save his family.
Right, right. So when they reintroduced that pack in that area, do you think it was too close to the ranch or something? Would it have been better if they moved them somewhere else for that not to happen or something else? I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's so hard to say because wolves can travel incredible distances, and there's no geographic landform that can keep them away, right? They go over mountains, they even cross oceans sometimes. So I just have no idea how to answer that. It's a what if, right?
So, do you think
What
that they introduced them in a place that CPW thought was safe, or whoever introduces them, and then they may have traveled, and then she got pregnant, and it just happened to be around where that ranch was?
because we have what something like something real rough estimate, something like 30 wolves here in Colorado, and not every rancher has had this issue, right? So it wasn't the wolves. It wasn't the wolves being reintroduced in the wrong place. It
Okay,
was the reaction of the rancher. And by the way, CPW only reintroduced in on public land.
okay,
So that's kind of all the information I have. But to
right.
that point, something that's kind of going in the back of my head is something that people say a lot to me, and that's that wolves don't belong in Colorado for various reasons. But one reason they say is because we don't have room for wolves, or that our livestock and human density is too high. That's actually not true. So something like the majority of the Western Slope is public land. I don't remember the numbers right now, but I mean, it's perfect habitat for wolves. It's mainly public land. Our livestock and human density is very close to the Northern Mountain Rockies area. And like I mentioned before, the Western Slope is about the same size as the greater Yellowstone area. So wolves do belong in Colorado. They are native. We do have room for them.
Yeah, it's just we have to learn how to coexist again,
That's true.
and that happens with education and asking for help on both sides. It can't be just one side trying. It has to be all sides,
Yeah.
and all that. So that is a good segue into what kind of education do you provide, and where can my audience, if they're interested in learning more, how can we get them to where you are? Give us some more information.
Yeah. So the main subject of my talks, of my education, is literally how to coexist with these animals. So I'm going to give you some rapid fire examples of what that coexistence might look like. It might look like livestock guardian dogs. It might look like people on horseback, which are called range riders, hazing wolves away. It could look like being proactive during calving time, which is a particularly vulnerable time for livestock producers and calves at that time. You can use blinking lights or sounds. Anything that's new or sort of human-like is going to be very effective at keeping wolves off of your property. Most of these materials are readily available, cheap, and require little to no effort on the part of the livestock producer. That's part of why these methods are so effective. So that's mainly what I talk about. I also tell people, livestock producers, how to get those resources, who to contact in CPW, who to contact as far as a representative to get more coexistence measures out on the Western Slope. We do a lot of that. I also talk a lot about the ecological benefits of wolves and what happened to wolves. And what's currently happening to wolves. So if you're interested in a wolf talk, I highly encourage you to email me at events@coloradowild.net to set up an event. If you have general questions, I encourage you to go to our website, coloradowild.net. And you can also follow us on social media. Facebook is Colorado Wild. Instagram is Colorado Wild Wolves.
So, do you have workshops in Colorado Springs?
So we do not currently have a workshop set up in Colorado Springs, but if there's anybody out there who is interested in a workshop, we will jump at the opportunity to make that happen.
Right. So, we don't have any of the wolves in Colorado Springs, I assume. So,
No,
that
and yeah, no.
it's not something we have to worry about here. However, we still have, down the road, uh, things like Calhan and Lamar and on the eastern
Hmm.
side, and then we have the western slope. Obviously, we have, that takes a little bit more to get over there. So our neighbors are could have interaction even if we don't, and we might branch off. But also, if we're curious in general, that doesn't mean we'll never have wolves in Colorado Springs. El Paso County is not just Colorado Springs, so
Definitely.
we have plenty. And what are they? So you travel to do the education, or so you don't have them set up?
We do travel. Mostly the workshops are done by other people,
Okay.
not me, just because I'm sort of the education, wolf education part of the organization. But Delia Malone, the founder, is often the organizer of those larger
Right.
workshop events because she has those connections to the livestock producers on the Western Slope.
I wonder if our local Colorado Springs, because I know people do love wolves, and
Mhm,
when
they do.
when they don't have to uh, interact with them, kind of, it's not, they don't have to worry about them, which we don't in Colorado Springs, but they have a fascination. Maybe they want more education. I wonder if we go ahead and maybe I'll do a poll and see how many people are interested, and then see if we can easily get a library room or something and then invite them. And then you
Yeah,
could educate, because I
yeah,
found this interview very educational and interesting. Obviously, I had things that I was not educated on, and so I misspoke in earlier. And I do know a little bit, but not that much. So it's very intriguing to me to find out about more. And I am not the only one. I'm not unique. So I
yeah.
wonder if we have more in the area, we could just set up something and come see you, and then you can educate us and be in your happy place, because that's where you love to be, is teaching everybody.
That's right. And we might be able to bring a wolf dog.
Oh, do you
No
have any?
names, but
Yeah, yeah, we won't. Um, so it might have to be at one of the breweries or something to bring the
yeah.
dog. You never
So
know.
we've done it at libraries as well, and
Uh-huh.
actually high schools and bars and all that. So David Hand is the guy who is in Colorado Wild, and he has several animals that he brings most often. And my favorite is Silas, the wolf dog. And Silas
Ah,
is pretty comfortable, but we try and do the interactions outside. So the idea is we would do the presentation inside. Everybody gets a little treat. We go outside, and the wolf dog comes around and eats a treat out of your
oh,
hand.
okay. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that would be really fun if we, like I said, I'll gauge interest, and if we
Yeah,
have it,
that'd be so
we'll
fun.
make it happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have touched on a lot, and we just went through how my audience can learn more about Colorado Wild, your workshops, but more of let's put one on in Colorado Springs. And that's because that's where you live, right?
Yeah.
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 So, and let's get Becca Sue out there because you can see how passionate she is about this. And the more we know and get educated, the better. And especially since it's here in Colorado, our livelihood kind of depends on this reintroduction and the ecosystem in general. So the more we know, the more we can have our own opinions and also maybe help support one way or the other on any of the people we do know,
Yeah.
I think. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing your story today, Becca Sue.
Yeah.
This is why I believe every local nonprofit has a mission worth amplifying. The work you're doing to bridge understanding between communities and protect our wild heritage affects us all. So, for our listeners who want to stay connected with stories like this one, subscribe to Colorado Springs Town Tidings at cos.towntidings.com. I'm Sandy Bobal-Zuniga, celebrating our city and the people protecting the wilderness beyond it. I'll see you next week. Thank you so much, Becca Sue.
Thank you. Thank you. Do I have room to say one more thing?
You absolutely do. Go ahead.
So, if there's any livestock producers listening to this, I just want to reiterate that I am not your enemy. I have no intention of ending hunting or ending ranching, anything like that. I want to help you protect your cattle or your sheep. It is possible and it can even be profitable. Please contact us or CPW if you need any help with coexisting.
Yep. And again, they can contact you at events at coloradowild.net,
Correct.
or
Correct.
it's also info at coloradowild.net, and go to coloradowild.net for more information. But as you see, Becca Sue is very approachable and she would love to help you if you have any questions. And let's coexist.
Let's coexist. I love it. Do you want to do a howl? You want to do a howl
Oh,
with
yeah,
me?
I love it.
You want to do it? Okay, we're gonna do it on the count of three. You ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1. Thank you.
On that note, we'll say adieu.
Thank you so much, Sandy.
Thank you. I want to get this in there. So there's your doggies.
This is Marilyn. She's a German Shepherd. And this is Franklin. He's my Pyrenees.
Aw, I love them.